Hey folks, you're listening to the Writers Podcast, where my co-host and I examine popular media and articulate our thoughts about why the story works or doesn't. My name's Colin, and I'm joined by my co-host Lance, and today we're talking about Daredevil Born Again.
So here's the recap for the latest episode. Detective Kim discovers Muse's identity is Bastion Cooper. Bastion tells Dr. Glenn she inspired him to pursue his artistic expression before he tries to kill her. Matt discovers Dr. Glenn is Muse's next target by feeling a sketch of her in his lair. Daredevil fights Muse, who is shot and killed by Dr. Glenn. After getting a tip from Vanessa that Fisk is alone, Luca goes to his location to murder him, but Buck shoots him, revealing Vanessa set Luca up.
So, what did you think about today's episode or this week's episode?
I thought it probably was the worst episode so far. Not necessarily because it alone was just bad. It was more so that the way it resolved and paid off certain things that were being set up was pretty awful. The first thing is obviously that Muse dies. He was basically in two episodes. He was in this one and he was in the one before, and then he's just dead now. He appeared like one time in like maybe episode four, the episode where Punisher appeared, and like he just showed up for like maybe less than a minute, and we saw him doing all the blood stuff, and he didn't do that much. He was only a major player in the episodes twice, in this one and the previous one. And like we've been talking about, you were asking what kind of contributions did he have to the theme. We saw that he had none. He had no interesting motive. We don't know why he's doing what he's doing. He just seems like an insane person, which is kind of fair because they did that in the comic, or at least his first comic as well. But I mean, I'm expecting something more from this story. Like, I don't know how Point Dexter was done in the comic, but he was done well in the TV show. So I don't feel like that is an excuse for these writers. He had no strong impact on the plot. Like, what did he really accomplish? He was a background character for most of the story. In the two episodes that he appears, all he does is add some personal stakes by coincidentally targeting people that Matt knows, like Ayala's, no, like the niece and his girlfriend. It's a disappointment. What do you think about Muse?
Well, I have to fact check you really quickly because you said that he doesn't have any motives, which is not true. His parents forced him to do Taekwondo when he was 16. So
Hmm.
clearly, if you're forced to do Taekwondo at an early age, this is just establishing a serial killer arc. So let's
Yeah,
let's let's
yeah.
back off on that a little bit.
My
Um,
bad, my bad.
but in all seriousness, though, like we have been talking about nonstop, they are not setting up the Muse arc whatsoever, and this episode really just validated that criticism completely because it is such a rush for payoff in this episode, and nothing is set up. There are conversations between him and Dr. Glenn where he says, "You inspired me to kind of like unleash my true self, to work on my become the true me, which is Muse, right?" And we haven't seen 1 second of that conversation up until this episode. He's
Yeah.
been talking about all this stuff that happened off screen. And we have been screaming this entire time. Can we see what Muse is doing to articulate his motive, to articulate his characterization? Like, can we learn something about Muse? And this is the episode where, like, instead of peppering Muse's personality, his motives, his origin, anything throughout the series to articulate like a development, how about we just give you everything in one episode, including his death? How about that? And it's like, well, it's actually not what we wanted. And it feels very
Hmm.
sudden, very rushed. And it also underscores a different point, which is that we have been talking about B plots or subplots that have no contribution to the larger A story, which makes me wonder why did we spend so much time on that bank robbery? Like,
Yeah.
why were we stuck with like all these other stories? Like even the Hector stuff does not tie into Muse whatsoever. In fact, it's like a mistake. Angela believes that Hector was killed because he was investigating missing people. That is still not the reason why Hector was killed. It was pretty clearly he was killed because of like Punisher cops, corrupt police officers killed Hector as retribution for him getting off in the case against Officer Shanahan. It has no connection to Muse whatsoever. All of these
Mm.
like these are not seamless like stories are woven in together. It's like misunderstanding and not even like anything that makes sense. Not like a misunderstanding that leads us down a rabbit hole of more interesting plots. Angela straight up misunderstands why Hector was killed. It
Mm.
was very clearly the police killed Hector. And even she says that. But then suddenly
Mm.
she thinks that Hector was killed by a serial killer. So she goes down to like the dungeons of like New York to find the
Hmm.
serial killer, and that's how she gets kidnapped by Muse. And that's what brings Matt back to like being Daredevil, and that ultimately brings Muse to killing or trying to kill Dr. Glenn. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. You say it out loud, like how the story starts and how it continues, genuinely
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's kind of like my overarching opinion on the episode. Are there any more specific details you want to touch on?
Well, not specifically about the muse. Actually, I do. Why did he try to kill Glenn? That's another thing. There's not enough introspection. Glenn was the person that helped him become his true self. So then why did he want to kill her? Is he just like a psycho? Is he just a madman like Bullseye? I don't understand. There's not enough introspection from this character for me to actually understand how his character actually thinks and how he ticks. But then moving on from that, my next gripe is the Luca Victor plotline. We spent so much time on this, and it's being built up. It was built up so much just for Luca to die without accomplishing anything. We had a whole bank robbery episode built on Luca trying to get enough money to pay back Victor, I believe. And then here, he's like, all right, Vanessa, let's work together. Let's get Fisk out of power. Let's get you back in power. And he just dies. So you're telling me we spent all that time building up to his plot line just for him to die without accomplishing anything? The most interesting thing that he did accomplish is that he initiated Vanessa's betrayal plot line, but I feel like that could have been accomplished without all that time spent on Victor or Luca. And that's my second criticism. What about you?
Well, I don't think Vanessa is betraying. I mean, besides Adam, unless that's what you're talking about. Like Luca,
I
it's
thought
not really in the.
Wait, Vanessa didn't Vanessa text Luca the location?
Yeah, but it was a setup, right? Because that's why Fisk texts
Right.
Vanessa like right after. It's like, oh, tell Vanessa like we're having like steaks tonight or whatever. So like he knew, presumably he told Vanessa like tell Luca to come over here. I have Buck standing in the corner. He's gonna kill him as soon as he comes in. Like that's presumably how I read the scene.
That's worse than what I thought. Okay, so now he's completely useless.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought the Vanessa thing was kind of interesting until Fisk says like, okay, tell Vanessa like we're gonna have dinner or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, so he told Vanessa to do that. Also,
I
Vanessa's
thought he was just
intel
like
is like
intimidating. I thought it was setting up for him to confront her about the betrayal, but possibly not.
I don't think so because Vanessa's intel was like incredibly off. He's like he's alone. First off, Buck
Hmm.
was there. So that's why I thought like either she's incredibly wrong or it was a setup, which makes more sense than her just
Hmm.
being wrong out of nowhere.
Okay.
And Buck was like standing conspicuously in the corner in the shadow, like he knew someone's gonna walk in to kill him, kill
Hmm.
Fisk. Um, but yeah, I for one second I thought the Vanessa betrayal was interesting, and then the rest happened. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes the Luca character completely disposable. Another disposable plot line that sidetracked us off the A story that we could have used to articulate Muse's character instead. But it's resolved very quickly, just like the Muse character, actually. Yeah, I think that to go back onto Muse a little bit, it reminds me a little bit of my problems with Bullseye's character in the first episode, where they're just saying, "Oh, he just killed Foggy because he's like, a crazy person. He's unpredictable. He just does things, to take out vendettas against people." And it's just like, okay, well, if you say someone's crazy, you don't have to give them motives because the crazy is the motive. But when you're watching a story, you want to see development and progression of what you're watching. It's not okay to
Hmm.
just have suddenly out of nowhere things happen because, oh, it's okay. In the universe, they're crazy. That's why Muse
Hmm.
tries to kill Dr. Glenn. That's why he killed 60 people. That's why he killed his Taekwondo coach. Like, because he's just a crazy person, unstable. And it's so artificial. And you can just see like exposition dump, like where I think her name is Detective Kim's talking to Fisk. It's like, well, he was committed when he was like 15 and then when he was 17 and 20. We don't know what the heck he was committed for. Presumably for some violent outbursts, but it's not enough to say, well, he's crazy. Don't you see? He was committed 3 times. That's why he's gonna kill Dr. Glenn. And it's like it's just like I was hoping for I don't know what I expected out of the Muse story. I didn't know if I wanted a mystery, like who is Muse? Like that could have been interesting, but they never set that up. Like it's this guy. We have multiple red herrings or suspects. It's a mystery. They never set it up as a mystery, so I wasn't really anticipating that. But I also did not want like a sudden hard reveal. It's Bastion Cooper. Don't you know? It's Bastion, the character who we have never identified up until this episode. It's that guy. Like
Hmm.
that was very, very jarring to be like thrown into like the fire here and be told like actually he's been meeting with Dr. Glenn this entire time and she helped him kind of unlock his potential as a serial killer. That was we all anticipated that, but it still came out of left field.
My next issue is with Fisk. I thought that maybe he was gonna be some kind of interesting antagonist, but so far, this man is just like petty, childish, and delusional. He actually thinks that he never committed any crimes and that Daredevil was wrong to put him in jail. Was he specifically talking about season 3 when he was saying that I was helping blue collar workers? Because I don't remember him helping blue collar workers.
I feel like he was talking about season one, because that's when
Mm,
he got put in jail. Well, the first
mm,
time.
okay.
But he was doing the Union Allied thing. I also thought that was really weird because like Fisk has been like a very I haven't enjoyed every second of Fisk even on a Netflix series, but he's been pretty like I feel like he's been pretty honest with himself about what he does, his intentions, and he's kind of got a warped sense of view. But this one made him sound so childish. He's like, I've never done anything wrong. I can't believe anyone
Hmm.
would antagonize me. Why do people have problems with me? I feel like a
Hmm.
Netflix Fisk would never have said that. He would just kind of embrace
I
the
agree.
challenge and moved on. It was very weird. There's like kind of self-pity from Fisk. Like that was bewildering.
Yeah, some more like inner thoughts and monologues would explain his views, but like he doesn't really get that. You just know that he's just acting like a childish baby. And then so that makes me question: is he actually delusional or is he in denial? And I don't know why. And then he's so petty that his main goal is to steal credit. His main objective in the story is stealing credit from stopping Muse from Daredevil. He just hates vigilantes and doesn't want to see any of them viewed in a positive light simply because Daredevil stopped him from committing crimes. Or as he said, he was just helping people, and Daredevil's just some evil guy who didn't want to see him help people. I feel like this is an awful villain. I thought that, and then it also shows that he values revenge over the good of the city. It would have been interesting to see a villain that is in a politically powerful position and is actually has some kind of maybe internal conflict or maybe some kind of interesting struggle with the main character. But no, this guy just puts all of his chips into getting in Daredevil's way. That's it. He doesn't actually care about making the city better. We don't really see him do much to help the city. He's like doing the port thing or whatever, Red Hook, but like that's more in the background. And I'm just disappointed. I think we could have had a complex villain, but he's just a child using his political power to get revenge against Daredevil. What do you think about Fisk?
Yeah, I feel like there are so many problems with Fisk this season. We just touched on that. He seems much more immature than usual, borderline out of character, honestly. Like his motives, his goals right now. I think they're trying to make like a mystery out of Red Hook, but they don't understand that to make a mystery, it has to be tantalizing to the audience. Like I have to wonder with you. You can't just tell me there's an undefined thing here, and the undefined thing will be important eventually. That's not enough to write a mystery. You have to
Mm,
kind of hook in the audience to make me care about what the undefined information is. So now I'm wondering. I don't care about Red Hook whatsoever. The
I agree.
plot, and that's not just a me thing. The plot has not made me invested in Red Hook whatsoever. They'll just have a couple of minutes per episode where I'll talk about something happened in Red Hook. There's another thing in Red Hook. It's whatever they say is never interesting. I don't care ever. I promise you. The mystery of Red Hook is not interesting. And when you make that the focus of Fisk's goals, now his goals are uninteresting, coupled with the
Yeah.
fact that his subplots have not supported or helped define the overall story or Matt's A story whatsoever. Like the Adam subplot, which had no bearing on anything at all. It's just really hard to watch Fisk this season. It's really difficult to see this.
Mm. My next problem, no, my next comment is about Daniel Blake. He finally did something interesting by threatening BB Yorick. This is interesting build-up that is setting up to be a payoff for BB's betrayal, which actually makes that thing relevant because I believe I complained about that the first time. I was like, what was the point of this subplot? But now it's like actually building up to something. But how relevant it'll actually be is still up in the air because I don't really trust these writers to actually do something interesting with that. Because I mean, they haven't really paid off many of their setups well so far. How do you feel about Daniel?
I think Daniel's the strongest out of the new cast of supporting characters, and I've been feeling this for a little bit. Especially when he's like trying to articulate his character through like his actions. When we saw him out of work in the nightclub like one or two episodes ago, I like that a lot. I think when you spend time with the characters, it helps like endear us to them. And I think seeing Daniel show little teeth against BB and be like, you kind of screwed me on that story, and now I'm gonna get my get back a little bit. It's like, okay, a little character agency. I like that. I think a lot of the other characters, the supporting cast, have lost a lot of agency. They haven't lost it, they never had to begin with.
Mm.
So I do think Daniel's growing on me. He's not really fully like an S tier supporting cast member like Punisher was or Nadeem or Karen or something, but I think he's growing to steadily.
Mm. And the next character is Buck. He just seems like a less delusional ally for Fisk, and I do like that because Daniel Blake is just like the blind follower, and Buck is the one who's like actually listening to reason. And then he says something about asymmetrical thinking. I really hope that'll become relevant at some point in this story because so far he has not done anything except for that one kill that he got. How do you feel about Buck?
I'm not a fan of Buck. He's just really a poor man's Wesley. And
That's true.
I know like Daredevil Nation really likes Wesley. I never really liked him that much, but when I just like look at Wesley's role in the story and I look at Buck's role in the story, I'm like, it's night and day. Like
Mm.
Wesley had agency, he really was that character. Um, I just don't quite feel the same about Buck, and I really don't quite feel the same about most of the supporting cast. Actually, I want to spin this back to you. Who do you think of the supporting cast has been done well, and who do you think has been done particularly horribly?
I think Daniel is getting better. But that's probably the only one. I mean, I think the niece was not good. I don't think any of Daredevil's two allies are good. I don't think Glenn is good. I don't think Leroy is good. I don't think many of these characters are really done well. Even the original characters aren't even done well. So it's overall a disappointment. But speaking of side characters, Punisher. Do you know what the original idea for was he originally going to be in the season?
Yeah, I think so.
What was the original pl do you have any idea what the original plan was?
I, as I recall, he was fighting the corrupt cops who appropriated symbol.
How many episodes did Dario remove? I know he added the first and then the last two, right?
So this is how the schedule works, as I recall, is that episodes two through what was this one? This is seven, right?
Seven. This was seven.
All right, so two through seven were originally one through six. Okay.
Hmm.
So they didn't do the last three episodes yet it was supposed to be
Hmm.
9 episodes, season one.
Yeah.
They didn't do the last three episodes yet. Then they paused production because they realized like it was horrible. They had to start,
Hmm.
they couldn't do it from scratch because they already filmed like 6 episodes. So Dario did a new episode one, and then he did the last 2 episodes himself. And
Do
then
you
there's some
think
reshoots in
he can fix
between.
the Punisher stuff? Do you think he can
Fix
actually
it?
execute on or at least like give us a satisfying conclusion with Punisher versus the corrupt cops?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's way too over for that. We're it's a mess.
Because
Honestly,
there's only
like
2 episodes left.
there's 2 episodes left. Like how can you
Hmm.
possibly put the genie back into the bottle right now? Like you have so many stories. You have Red Hook you need to resolve. You need
Hmm.
to resolve who
The
killed Hector
vigilantes.
if you are going to
No.
answer that at all, maybe. Like I don't even know if they plan to answer that. Or if they're
Yeah.
just gonna say it's one of the many corrupt NYPD officers. Like take your pick, it doesn't matter because it's a system, man. It doesn't matter who it was. Like if is that
Hmm.
the answer we're gonna get, um,
Hmm.
we have ugh, there apparently Bullseye's coming back as well. So there's a Bullseye plot,
Uh,
right? You have, in my opinion, which was one of the more interesting subplots, which was Powell's involvement in Hector's death, his involvement in the level of corruption. I used to really care about that. I'm completely over it now. You have
hmm.
to answer questions in a certain order and in a certain rate. You can't just leave a question dangling for so long and expect me to still care about it by the end of the
Severance.
season. It's genuinely like I don't even know if they want to answer Powell. It feels like they forgot that. Powell has been passively working with Fisk the entire time. Although he's done nothing really bold-faced nefariously, he hasn't done anything really wrong since he joined Fisk, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I feel like he was doing more wrong before he partnered with Fisk by like roughing up people, trying to get Hector arrested or sent to prison
Oh
for
yeah, what
murder. He
about
did
that? What happened there? What was he
about
doing with the informant? Why did he fight
yeah.
Hector?
What's going on with Nikki? Like there are too
Hmm.
many. That's the thing. Is like there are so many questions that need to be resolved by the end of the season, and I can't help but feel that some of these questions are not even going to be resolved. The Nikki
Yeah.
thing, I've given up hope for. I've given up hope. I don't think we're gonna figure out why Nikki was being beaten up by the cops. I give up
Mm.
on that. Hector, I kind of give up on. Like, are we gonna answer who killed him? I feel like the answer is the system killed Hector. I don't feel like we're gonna find like a mystery out of this. I don't think anything interesting is gonna come out of it, which is a shame because it was a good mystery. And then they derailed it for a bank robbery episode, and then
Mm.
a really, really sped run Muse fight, and then an even more sped run Muse death. So
Mm.
we've lost like so much momentum in the story. Like I don't know how you recapture that momentum in the last couple episodes while resolving all of those questions that we need answers to. I think it's really difficult to thread this needle. But what do you think?
No, I think it's over, bro. I think there's no redemption for this season. I mean, I'm interested to see what Dario tries to do to like bring this all together because apparently, I mean, it's very clear that the original story was garbage and that he's trying to do his best with what he has right now. But I'm questioning if he even has the skills to like try and make this better, try and like put some glitter on this dumpster fire because he could just be just as bad as the other people. Uh, yeah, it's very rough. It's not looking good.
I mean, I feel like there's been a very jarring misintention to detail and attention. I don't know if that's a word, but there's just not like attentiveness to the details, which is something that was really strong in a Netflix series. Um, an example of that would just be like in this week's episode, how they said that Kim strongly suspects that Muse killed his Taekwondo instructor, but like on the autopsy report, there's no cause of death on what killed him.
Was that how's that
Taekwondo
possible?
Taekwondo does not definitely leaves marks if you're gonna attack someone with Taekwondo. Like it's not a mystery if you kill someone with like kicks in the face.
Hmm.
How did Muse as a 16-year-old kill him without leaving a trace? Like who is this super criminal? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
He was there's no cause of death. There's no how if he used Taekwondo, how
Yeah.
did he do it? Like I don't know what that means at all. Um And this is kind of like it sounds like it's a petty criticism, but this is just like an
Hmm.
example of
A
like the
greater
legal
problem.
drama issues. Like there was just no legal strategy during those episodes, right? There's no
Hmm.
strong police work in catching Muse. They just kind of like lucked into that he had canvas for his like costume instead of like a clothing fabric, and it just so happened that they're able to talk to all 11 people except the 12th person who is Muse. That's how they found his
Hmm.
identity. He was just the only person they couldn't interview. It's just like none of these details really strengthen anything, and if anything, they make things worse. Um, yeah. Also, another example of this, Powell says he used facial recognition on a sketch to identify the person in the sketch. Facial recognition, which sometimes doesn't always work for photographs. Somehow this painting or this sketch was so good that it worked for facial rec. What does that
Hmm.
even mean? What are these? Like, the writer's just like saying words. It's just like, yeah, facial recognition, no cause of death. Like, I don't understand. It's like you watch TV and then you just like kind of write from what you've seen on TV, but you've never actually tried to like look up what the words actually mean and the application of those words.
Hmm. I feel like they could have just
So,
sent the pictures to Fisk and then Fisk could have realized, wait a second, I know her.
yes, that would be so much better because Fisk that would have paid off why Fisk has like couples therapy. Like we could have been like, oh, it actually ties into the A story, which it didn't before, and it still doesn't now because they didn't do that. Like that's a
Hmm.
layup right there. They could have done like a 1-2, and instead they make up like how facial recognition works. They just rewrite the rules of facial recognition.
I
So
don't know how I feel about
bizarre.
Matt touching the face of the painting and that linking up with his face of the real person. Like, does it really work like that?
Like Muse is just like such a gifted sketcher. Like even a blind person and facial recognition break character to kind of. Well, I don't know. I guess. I mean, Matt has superpowers, so sure, I
I
guess.
mean, it's a painting. Is the paint on the paper really that raised that he can feel all the different textures of what's going up and down, that he can make out a face of like a real person? If it was like a sculpture, I would understand. I'd let that slide, but it's like a painting.
Yeah, yeah. It's And if it sounds like we're being nitpicky or petty, we're genuinely not, because it's okay to ask for your stories to have detail. It's all right to wish for your stories to be like developed well. Like the final form that any story has is based on all the steps that it took to get there. And the steps
Mm.
are underdeveloped, that means the final form is not good. And that is this episode. That's this series in a nutshell. Tons of little steps, tons of little missteps that lead to like huge fall offs and payoffs. It's just that.
Is there anything else you gotta say about the season?
Um, just that the supporting characters still really, I think, I don't know what to say about the supporting characters that hasn't already been said. They're underdeveloped. They lack agency. They're not interesting. They're just not good characters, and they, which is rough because we used to have S tier supporting cast in the previous seasons, and now we're like in the gutters.
Mm.
We're really in a rough spot right now with Cherry, with McDuffie, with Glenn. Like we're 7 episodes in, and these characters are still all really, really poor. Like I had some expectations for Powell, went absolutely nowhere. The writers decided actually that one contradiction we gave you, we're not going to explain the contradiction. And in fact, we're not even going to reference the contradiction ever again to make you think like we're going to pay it off. At this point, I have no expectations we'll ever figure out why Powell was not involved in the murder when he was involved in like the cover up in the trial. Now that just feels like a plot hole to me instead of like you're trying to tell something interesting with a twist. Cole North, terrible character. New edition, adaptation from the comics, horrible character. Nothing interesting. If you're gonna go like fly in the face of your own source material, like please, like gotta do something interesting with it. Um, Nothing interesting with the task force. Like they're naming characters like I should care, and
Mm.
there's nothing interesting about them.
Mm.
Bullseye, a character that was S tier, you brought him down to like F tier with that one episode, and now he's coming back. I don't know. I don't know what form we're taking because nothing's been built up. I have no expectations for
Yeah,
the ending other than it's not gonna be good. There are no narrative expectations though. Like you tell me Bullseye's coming back. What's he gonna do?
I don't know.
He
Kill someone else.
he's gonna kill Cherry out of nowhere because
Hmm.
he's just like, a
A
self-styled
madman.
assassin.
Hmm.
Self-styled assassin taking out vendettas against perceived grudges or whatever. Like it's just that Bullseye's character now. He's just Deus Ex Machina machine.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Is there anything
No.
else you want to say?
No, I think that really ties it up. It's just a bad episode in a bad season.
Hmm. Well, folks, that's all from us today. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time on the Podcraft.